And this talk will be on the Great Tree Zen Women's Temple YouTube site soon. And I'm going to read a brief statement about the practice of Donna. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana Paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. And those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a Dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. And so the donation page for Great Tree is in the chat. And Chimyo, if you don't mind, what's the best way to spread Dana to you? Is it PayPal or a direct check?
Either is fine. PayPal is fine. Yeah, PayPal is fine.
Okay. And what's your PayPal? And I'll put it in the chat.
It's my email, schimyo@gmail.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'll invite Anne to unmute and introduce you.
Yes, thank you for that little hint there. Welcome to Chimyo. It's so good to see you. I'm sure, I assume all of us do know you, but may not be familiar with your extensive Zen background. So I'll kind of go through that. Chimyo was ordained by Teijo in 2007 and received Dharma Transmission in 2015. Besides her monastic training at Great Tree, she completed Sotoshu International training periods in Japan in 2010 and 11, and also periods at Aichi Senmon Nisodo in Nagoya in 2012, and Ryumonji Monastery in Iowa in 2014. Chimyo is currently living in the big city in New York. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, and the big city is right outside the window making whole lots of noise right now, but just in time for talking. Well, good morning. It's good to see all of you. Always good to see all of you. When I started doing Zen, I had no picture of what it would look like, what I would be doing. And when I ordained, I certainly had no picture of what I would be doing. And somehow it didn't include me sitting around talking to people about Zen. You know, I think I had romanticized it a bit, and I didn't think I'd have to sit and try to, talk about Zen. But here I am, and I've actually placed myself in a situation. Well, basically, that's all I can do right now is sit up here with my big head on the screen and talk, which is not easy. So I come to you a little bit, as usual, unprepared, because I never think that there's anything else to talk about. It's like we've been talking so long. What else is there to talk about? So, I do the thing where you just go back to the beginning. And coming right up on my deadline to do this talk last night, I had the choice between the beginning is always for me, the precepts or shikantaza. And I think I got, I definitely got this from Teijo. Just go back to those basic things, but there's nothing basic. You think it's basic, but there's nothing basic about either of those things, about keeping the precepts and what they mean in our lives, or about doing zazen. There's all kinds of rabbit holes to fall into on either of those subjects, as you all probably know at this point, having practiced as long as you have. So I did some sleepy writing last night, and this is kind of what I came up with. Here comes the city. The basis of Soto Zen is shikantaza, just sitting, allowing thoughts, views, ideas of past, present, future to drop away. Just being present with all myriad things, being in the emptiness, beyond self and other. And for some reason I put quotes around beyond self and other. The intent to do so is a great koan. To hear the birds outside singing as we sit. Suzuki Roshi talked about not naming the bird, not naming the song, but just being, because that which hears bird is bird, and bird is that which hears. There's no space between. There's no separate existence, no one without the other. This is shikantaza. This is emptiness. The monk from Mount Ayawang taught Dogen that practice is not separate from buying mushrooms for dinner. Everyday activity is practice. But what activity? Dogen tells the story of his encounter with the old mushroom buying monk in Tenzo Kyoko. The essay on how to be a cook. The implication being that the same awareness of zazen is the same as the kitchen. The old monk practices just buying mushrooms. The Tenzo just cooks. The sitter just sits. Dongshan asks Wei Feng, do you wash the sand away from the rice or the rice away from the sand? Wei Feng answered, I wash both the sand and the rice away at the same time. This is cooking rice. This is shikantaza. Okay, so whatever I meant by that, it always comes down to what is happening, if anything, in Zazen. What is Zazen for? Shohaku Okumura says that Zazen is for nothing. And that is absolutely true. And what I was referring to when I was writing about Suzuki Roshi, there's a film of one of his talks at Tassajara where he talks about the bird singing outside. And what we tend to do with that idea of bird singing outside. If you sat at Great Tree at any time, especially in the morning, the birds are a riot. They're just out there just doing their thing, screaming, singing, whatever they're doing out there. It's always, it just fills everything some mornings. And sitting there, there's this sort of need or whatever it is in this human brain to wonder, you know, what the bird looks like, what it's singing about, why, how, this, that, when there's no call for any of that. It's such a big distraction that that I can couch myself in and not do zazen, and, you know, do all this thinking and picture making and everything but zazen. But some mornings when I get tired of that, especially when I don't have any strength left to kind of to fight, especially when there's this point of where I can get to that surrender that allows me to let go of all these ideas that are doing me no good. And I can just be and sit with that song, and not call it a song, and be and sit with that moment. And it's always so brief. I kind of get an idea, that word again, of what Dogen means. And then when you talk about the Tenzo Kyokun, you know, there's a whole lot in the Tenzo Kyokun. You go back to it again and again. And it's just about everything. And I think that's why people tend to love it so much. Why I love it so much, because there's so much in it. You know, it's nothing but pointing. You know, it's nothing but him pointing poetically at this practice, at zazen, and the nothingness that is behind us, behind it. That it is of paying attention, not just paying attention, but being fully there, being fully in, whether it's an activity, so fully into an activity that it's not an activity, you know, that it's just a space of being. And this is why I hate talking about this stuff, because I'm not the poet that Dogen is. And it's so on the verge of wordless, that I just want to shut up. I pulled out that quote of Zui Feng of washing both the sand and the rice away at the same time. And there's the understanding that he's not talking about the physical throwing away the rice or throwing away the sand. there's a point of non-judgment as to what the value of rice or the value of sand. And there's an understanding that the rice and the sand are one, and the rice doesn't exist without the sand. You know, it's not about what you're eating. It's about what you're holding in practice. There's also a quote in the Tenzo Kyokun, you put the things that belong in a high place, and the things that belong in a low place in a low place. There's nothing to that high and low. It's simply what it is. It's simply where it sits in this moment, what it is for this moment. There's no saying that there is no call for sand, and there's no call for rice, and this is what you eat and this is what you throw away. That's not the attention that Dogen is talking about. It has nothing to do with what we eat and what we throw away. It's what is. Just that. And I think that's what Suzuki was talking about. Just. It's not song is beautiful. It's not bird is blue. It's not I am listening. It's just this. And I feel like, you know, the reason I keep practicing, because this is hard. This mess is some hard stuff, you know, and it's really getting hard for me because, you know, and this is why I think it's really important that modern Zen, you know, modern, there's a judgment for you right there, that Zen take up the or not take up, but because we already do, but that we kind of come to a focus on lay practice a little more. And I'm not saying that there's no room for what we're doing, the monastic practice and all that. I think that is also very important. But there's this, there needs to be more of a focus for practice that doesn't have its special container that is out there in the world. Trying to do this, sometimes sitting alone at home when you can't get out because there's a pandemic. Even this sort of thing is very difficult. It's different than having, you know, your whole day held by a schedule, held by your peers sitting with you. It's being out in the world where sometimes this sort of mindset or this mindfulness is not even appreciated. It's very hard to do this practice. It's very hard to just be when there's a whole city outside trying to make you hear them, you know, and take your focus away from just being. Every time I sit here in my sister's apartment, you know, we're right next to the front door to the apartment building. Outside is where people and delivery people, I can see the tops of their heads. We're on the first floor. And so I can see the tops of their heads. And the buzzer is extremely loud. And a lot of times, because we're in New York City and this is the way things work and don't work, half the bells in this building don't work. So there's always somebody outside ringing their phone, let me in. This is so-and-so, let me in. So it's like that constantly. And right there, right next to me, almost in the room. And that's just kind of a physical noise distraction. But there's also energies and that I hadn't experienced in a long time, being the difference between North Carolina and the city. There's an energy that, as soon as it hits about 6 o'clock in the morning, it will wake you up because everything starts moving. The traffic, the buses, the people coming in and out, it just all starts moving. And it's very different feeling than in a rural place or in a suburban place. And I've had to learn to work with that again, and to try to sit and understand and come to the understanding that these sounds, these sirens, these people, this energy is bird. It just, um, and I think that's hard when you're not used to it. I don't know how, I don't know how we do. But this is the basis of our practice, to sit and just be and just bird without the word bird and just, and I think when we come to meditation, when we come to Zazen as meditation, that is helpful. There's nothing wrong with that. When we come to Zazen as just meditation, just breathing, just letting yourself be relaxed. That's a wonderful end to Zazen. But Zazen is more effort because it's not about just breathing and relaxing. So that's definitely some part in it. But it's also allowing oneself to be a part of whatever energy there is there, whatever just is there, without the judgment, without the struggle, without causing yourself suffering, because it's uncomfortable or noisy or not like you expect it to be. And also not distracting yourself because it's beautiful and it's sweet and it makes you feel good. Distraction. It's something without all of that that brings us to this ultimate reality that we're always talking about. I'm sort of dropping the word enlightenment because I hate to use words when I don't really, what I've been doing all morning, when I don't really feel like I know what I'm talking about. because whatever I say is some delusion that I have about what something is. But I think it's the edge of that. It's the edge of what Gautama was trying to point us to, is this just. Because it's, and it's not just sitting. It's just buying the mushrooms. It's just turning on the computer. It's just washing the rice or the sand, or washing without those ideas. So that's what I got to, or where I'm coming to this morning. And you know, I frustrate Jane because I never give her a title to my talks, because I never know what they're going to be, what is going to come out. Because because I'm just trying to come to grips with all, you know, my ego wants to know everything. My ego wants to know what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about something that is not knowable. So how, you know, how egotistic is that? It's just, and this is just what it is, because this is our both our it's both a blessing that we can talk at all, that we can communicate. And it is required that we spread the Dharma, that we speak the Dharma as best we can. But at the same time, we have to know that we don't know. And we have to give a little leeway to those who, because we said we would, because we took this vow, we have to give a little leeway to those who are trying, to all of us who are trying our best to express and manifest this practice imperfectly. So I think that's all I have for today. And if anybody has something maybe a bit more articulate than I am, you know, please do. So